Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar. And welcome to the webinar, Manufacturing Excellence with One MES Replacing over 50 legacy systems. My name is Augusto Vilarinho. I'm the head of Global Sales and Business Development at Critical Manufacturing, and I will be hosting this session together with my colleague, Susana Silva, who was the project manager for Vishay. And we are welcoming Dr. Thomas Amrein, who will share Vishay's experience in moving from point solutions to a fully integrated enterprise MES. Before, let's say, formally introducing Dr. Amrein, allow me just to share with you a few quick housekeeping items about how to participate in the webinar today. So the webinar has essentially 3 to 4 main blocks that will be presented by Dr. Amrein. And at the end of each block, we'll have just a few minutes of a roundtable conversation with a question that I may ask or somebody can ask. And at the end of all blocks, we will collect the questions that you may ask through the Q&A button or app that you will find at the top of your Teams app. So there is a button specifically to ask questions. But you may also use the chat in case you face any issue with the Q&A button. Sometimes it happens if you are using the web browser. In any case, the webcast will be recorded, will be available on demand, and we will share a link to that same webcast to everyone that registered independently, if you have participated or not, to everyone that have registered for today's presentation. So before I hand over to Dr. Amrein, so allow me to introduce him. So Dr. Amrein worked for 5 years at BC Components that was acquired by Vishay in 2003. And at that time, he integrated all operational processes of BC Components into Vishay and took over the responsibility as senior director. In 2008, he became Vice President Planning and Systems for the Passives Business Unit. Vishay started a business process ownership program in 2011. And since then, Dr. Amrein is the business process owner for planning and manufacturing passives. Again, a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Amrein. And of course, thank you very much for your availability to join us and share your experiences in this webinar. So it's time now to pass the ball to you. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Augusto. I catch the ball. Thank you for the warm welcome. So, welcome everybody to this webinar, Manufacturing Excellence with One MES, replacing over 50 of our today's legacy systems. My name is Thomas Amrein, and I will take you on a short journey into the changing Vishay universe. I'm 57 years old, work over 20 years for the company Vishay, as you heard, and I live in the small town of Heid in the north of Germany, not so far from Hamburg. I'm servicing with my team in a corporate function the 11 passive divisions in Vishay. We support them on all planning and manufacturing processes, including the better use of IT system applications, as well as the standardization and harmonization of processes. The presentation consists of 4 chapters. In the first chapter A, I will give you some background information on the Vishay Group, as the framework conditions have a significant impact on the global manufacturing execution system implementation and determine our strategies. Those strategies will be presented in the next 3 chapters. But please allow me to abbreviate from now on the manufacturing execution system with the abbreviation MES. Chapter B is about our migration and rollout strategy. Since the rollout can last up to 10 years to get it to every of our 50+ manufacturing sites, we do need to find a reasonable and acceptable way to achieve that. A short Q&A session with Susana and Augusto will bridge to the next chapter C about delivery strategy. Manufacturing has much higher expectations of the system environment than, for example, sales or enterprise resource planning, means ERP systems. A manufacturing execution system must be high performant in order to exchange countless amounts of data in real time with all machines, equipment, and devices. It must be scalable in order to grow as quickly and cost effectively as possible. And it must be able to adapt quickly to new and frequently changing requirements. All this needs to be reflected in the delivery strategy. Another short Q&A session will bridge to the next chapter, D. Despite the advancing automation, everything ultimately revolves around people, and in our case, mainly the users of the MES. People develop and implement processes, use the system as input of source of information. The support strategy of the last chapter D will show how we in Vishay support our operational people with a worldwide network of well-trained colleagues dedicated for this new corporate service. A final Q&A session will close this presentation. So start first with chapter A. Who is Vishay? The Vishay journey began exactly 60 years ago with one man, our founder, Dr. Felix Sandmann, and a revolutionary technology. Let's take a quick look on a short image presentation of Vishay.
A young technologist at the doorstep to a rapidly evolving world, with a vision and determination to propel his enterprise to become a global leader in electronic component manufacturing. He started building more than a business. He started building the DNA of tech. A universe of diodes and rectifiers, MOSFETs, power ICs, optoelectronics, resistors, inductors, and capacitors. Essential components that breathe life into products everywhere, from transportation to telecommunications to healthcare and entertainment. The DNA of tech helps designers and inventors around the globe make a positive impact on people every day, in every way. Together with the manufacturers of today's most compelling electronic innovations, we help make people safer, make work productive, make things go, create energy, sustain our planet, and enable everyone to connect. This is the power behind our partnership. This is the power that instills confidence. This is the power of the DNA of tech.
All right, you heard in the video that Vishay is one of the world's largest manufacturer of discrete semiconductors and passive electronic components. Vishay grew in the last 60 years through numerous acquisitions, all of which have left their visible mark. We work and produce in a very heterogeneous Vishay cosmos with many extremes and special challenges. Let's take a look to it. Let's start with the first extreme, the product range. Many of our products are produced anonymously in large batch sizes of, for example, 500,000 pieces made to stock. Others are made to order, down to the other extreme of only one batch size of one piece. The size of the product ranges from ultra small chips, only a few millimeters long or wide and light as a feather, to very bulky and heavy devices that are over 1 meter in size and very heavy. The second extreme is a direct consequence of the broad product portfolio, because it allows us to serve a wide range of customers in virtually every market segment that uses electronic components, and in almost every country in the world. As a logical consequence, our engineers are confronted with all kinds of quality standards and requirements from the industry, be it automotive, medical, or military. Our product lines have to fulfill the highest quality standards of those industries. Any MES must support these demanding requirements for both the present and the future. Let's proceed with the third extreme. Vishay has grown over the past 60 years primarily through acquisitions. Each acquired company brought in production facilities with many different people, machines, and production processes. The acquisitions have been in a wide variety of regions around the world. bringing people and processes from a wide variety of cultures into the company. Vishay has always taken great pride in promoting unit autonomy and the entrepreneurial spirit of divisional management, so many of these structures remain still today. However, this does not make it easy to introduce standard software with standardized processes, because it often means throwing traditional habits and processes out of the window and calling into question everything that has previously been done very successfully for decades up to the present day. Vishay has manufacturing facilities in all regions of the world, primarily in North America, Western Europe, Israel, as well as Asia Pacific, with a larger footprint in China, but with an eye towards a global balance. Vishay manufactures in 54 manufacturing facilities in more than 20 countries, employs over 23,000 people, and has annual sales in the range of $3.4 billion US. We produce over 100,000 different products each year, and kindly remember the huge variety of products we offer. Clear, the many acquisitions have left their mark on our IT landscape too. For example, we have more than 50, we can say, MES type applications and over 600 listed special software in the more than 50 production sites. With great effort, we have at least been able to reduce the number of IT applications in the overall supply chains in recent years, with looking to enterprise resource planning, warehousing, or, for instance, purchasing. Although several legacy systems still need to be replaced here as well. Vishay consists now of two business units, passives with 37 production sites and semiconductors with 17 production sites. The semiconductor operations fortunately run with Promise MES as their one and only tracking and tracing system in production, although this is no longer does not no longer meet all requirements in today's production either. In the many passive sites, we keep running a large variety of old MES-like legacy systems. Therefore, the focus of our ongoing MES implementation program is strongly on passive production sites. In the coming years, we plan to migrate these many legacy systems with their many data and processes to the new standard MES of critical manufacturing. In this presentation, we will discuss some important aspects of this long-lasting mission. Vishay is planning such a migration to modern standard applications, not only for manufacturing and MES, but also in all other functional areas, such as applications for customer relationship management, quality management, or human resource management, to name just a few important ones. Many projects and programs are in planning or already in execution. Of particular interest for the manufacturing sector is the ongoing work on a worldwide standard software for a workforce management, building management, or product lifecycle management system. In the future, these will be connected to our MES in order to share data and maintain master data on only one system, the master system. Connected system will provide integrative solutions that would be inconceivable without them, at least not automatable. Here, I would like to give you an example of, for instance, a severe voltage drop that can be detected early by the energy management system, which is part of the BMS. This triggers an elaborate, largely automated emergency plan that informs people, shuts down machines and systems in a controlled manner, and keeps vital processes running for as long as possible. In this way, the economic damage to a company like Vishay can be minimized. The goal of this company-wide digital transformation is the constant automation of processes, the migration from many individual machines to networked intelligent devices, from countless paper, PDF, Word, and Excel documents to paperless integrated processes, which have thus become much more analyzable and transparent. As an important side effect, the organization will grow closer together. Now you can talk together, possibly online, about problems and solutions to problems, because the applications and processes are the same or at least similar. So we built a new culture of networking people. Hence, it is a very exciting journey for all of us. But let's move on to chapter B, which focuses on migration and deployment strategy for critical manufacturing's MES. You will hear about our rollout steps, the expected timelines, and the evolutionary approach. Or is it even revolutionary? I leave it up to you to think about it and form an own opinion. In 2017, Vishay started an evaluation project to find the best fitting MES software and vendor for us. We reviewed the MES market, read Gartner and other articles, and finally selected 3 most potentials after a few selection steps. We invited all the 3 vendors to a nice facility in North America. We conducted with each a so-called case study to see how flexible the companies are, how quickly a simple process can be set up with our data, and how intuitive the software is to use. After a long-lasting negotiation phase, where we did a thorough calculation of the total cost of ownership, we presented the results to our top management. In 2018, we could get the management decision and pass finally all contracting with critical manufacturing. It lasted another year before we could officially kick off the first pilot project in summer 2019. It was a brownfield migration of our case study site in North America. Unfortunately, the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020 hit also our project. We canceled all trips and started to learn how to do the work solely with online meetings. But in spite of this, we could go live in May 2020 with the first line, and in fall 2020, spring 2021, and summer 2022 with the next product lines without any troubles. We did the first line together with the teams of critical manufacturing and the agile 2-week sprint approach, but all others successfully on our own. Already in 2020, we could get the management approval for an MES project and could plan for the next projects. And next was a greenfield site, means a plant in China where we plan to move into with 3 different divisions and very different product lines in the years 2020, 21, and 22. We could prove our approach to simply copy and paste the quasi-standard setup, which we prepared during the pilot. We plan now for the migration of various brownfield and greenfield sites in Europe, Israel, and North America, starting in Q4, running first time more than 2 projects in parallel. But let's take a closer look at Vishay's evolutionary approach. You heard that we started our effort with a pilot project in North America and migrated very different product lines over there to Critical's MES. We choose a site with fairly typical but tidy process flows with a lot of process know-how on site. First, we needed to understand the new MES application, means its logic, language, functions, modular structure, and data requirements, which took longer than expected. We decided to start simple with a clear focus on shop floor order tracking. Other functions such as equipment integration, productive maintenance, or production planning could be added later. We defined a basic standard and paid special attention to the fact that it could later work the same way at all sites. It was important for us to develop a basic interface to our SAP ERP system and with it to our overall supply chain and order processing right from the first project. Therefore, we mirrored all material movements, material consumptions, and employee working hours on shop floor from the MES to the ERP, offering a new live view on those data in SAP ERP and thus a product costing on lot level. We migrated product line by product line in little big bangs. We went live with newly started lots and died out old legacy lots. We closed this pilot project in summer last year. During the migration of the 3rd and 4th lines at the pilot site, we already started setting up the pilot installation as a quasi-template for another completely different site that was a new site in China. ERP integration and batch tracking were set up quickly, but training the many new users on the new system again took quite long. Since the new site was a greenfield plant that did not require any migration, we were able to simply install what we had delivered as part of the pilot project. New customizations were only made if they were really needed. Although the corona pandemic kept us from any travel, we went into operation without any problems. The project schedule was essentially dictated by setting up the available hardware, infrastructure, machinery, and equipment at the new site, which was certainly not an easy task, as only remote support from other sites with experience in the machinery and production processes was possible at that time. In the second half of each project, we focus on the equipment integration of various devices and machines. This took a lot of time because each machine and equipment is different. In fact, some steps have not been completed yet. In the meantime, we went live with 3 product lines at this site in China. All 3 are very different and from different divisions and with different acting people, habits, and requirements. With the second site on MES, meanwhile, we were able to start building our key user network of MES specialists with people from the first 2 sites in US and China, who can now share information about the installed processes, the maintenance of data, or any problems that arise. I will say more about this in Chapter D, Support Strategy. We are already preparing for the next 4 projects starting in Q4 2022, which are now a mix of brownfield and greenfield setups. We will reintroduce our MES standard with established interface to our standard SAP ERP system. We plan now to include machine maintenance, critical PM module as a new feature in one of the planned projects, thus defining a standard for it. After that, we will integrate PM into our standard implementation plan. The same approach is planned for production planning. We will add it as a new feature to another project, define a standard for it, and integrate it into our standard rollout plan. Production planning will trigger a new role in production, the MES Production Planner. Of course, this approach of adding certain modules later during the rollout requires that already migrated sites will be retrofitted with these 2 modules, PM and PS. It requires the coordination of several parallel activities. But the approach helps spread the burden of introducing new modules across multiple sites to increase site adoption and balance the load. Obviously, we need to increase the pace of site migrations over time. Depending on plant size and other aspects, we need to migrate about 5 to 8 plants per year in order to close the program in a reasonable time frame. Some smaller plants can be bundled together in one project, but bigger sites can only be migrated separately. The order will be based on management priorities, expected cost savings, or urgency. Also, simply cloning of already migrated product lines to other sites play a role in this sequencing. The concept is to use our pilot implementation as a quasi-template for all manufacturing sites, although we are not using the template approach offered by critical manufacturing, at least not yet. In doing so, we always want to roll out all established processes and modules, including production scheduling and productive maintenance. Remember, we are currently evaluating a standard for workforce and product lifecycle management. So our plan is to connect these 2 to our MES piecemeal in separate pilot projects and then roll out both applications as optional packages to additional sites. Logically, we need to continue with migrating projects until the program is complete. Whenever the migration of the last plant occurs, depending on employees' priorities, further acquisitions, or expansions. Of course, each migration triggers many follow-on tasks and projects. Any production is always in motion as new machines are added, processes are changed, or new requirements are made. Production and its requirements never stand still. Therefore, they require a very good service strategy. So that's the end of Chapter B. And Augusto, I hand over to you for the first Q&A session.
Yes, so thanks for the thorough explanation. Of course, very interesting. So I'd like to emphasize to all the participants that you can ask questions through the Q&A button. So please feel free to do so. In the meantime, there's already a few coming in, but there is also another one that I think is quite spot on to this, which is a question related with the number of sites to deploy. So with so many sites to deploy and knowing that an MES project takes its time, how are you planning in terms of resources to ramp up this number of multiple site deployment activities in the upcoming years?
Yeah, right, Gus. That's really a challenge, and of course, we are fully aware that we are not able to handle this extreme huge work with our own resources only. That's not possible. So that's why we count on external partnershiping. So we look for companies who can help us with the many migration and implementation. And of course, we are counting on the support of critical manufacturing for sure, but we are also working already with another partner with whom we have concrete plans. So yes, indeed, we need all hands on deck and as many as possible. And of course, we are building up also our own resources in parallel in order to be able to handle the many projects. I would like to emphasize that it's always Vishay's goal to become largely independent from external partners one day.
Okay, very good. I think that actually answers also another question that was posted in the meantime. But because Susanne is very silent as well, so allow me to ask you a question here. So Thomas explained that the pandemic situation provoked us to work remotely. So and we know that the second site deployment was mostly done remotely. So due to these pandemic restrictions, so can you elaborate on the importance of having these connected teams to the success of this activity?
Yeah, it's true. Actually, the second site, the whole implementation was done remotely. The first site, some of the deployments were supported remotely, but the second site is even more special because of that, because the implementation started in September 2020, and the site is located in China. So the full amount of work, all the activities since the kickoff meeting, the initial workshops where we detailed the requirements, we collected the requirements, they were completely done relying on Teams meetings. And moreover, because it was the joint work of both critical manufacturing team and on Vishay's side, it was Chinese teams, but also supported by European teams. So it was quite a challenge. It lasted, I'd say, about 30 sprints. That is a little bit over a year, accounting for the initial workshops and also the final testing and validation. So it was quite a challenge, but in the end, it was proven it's possible to do all of the activities together remotely. There was absolutely no visits. Even these, Thomas mentioned it before, even the sharing of knowledge of production processes between Vishay teams and all, it was done remotely. And I recall even the testing of a machine integration that we were doing through Teams. And we were lucky to have people on site in the production line with a webcam pointing to the machine, so we could follow the real life responses of the equipment, not only the expected results in the controllers that we were getting on the environment that we were following, of course. Not only that, but we could see the real response of the machine in real time.
Okay.
That meant that we really had to know which were the right communication channels. And when you talk about well-connected teams, that was really important. And also knowing the right people to address. But in that case, everything was organized. On Vishay's side as well, it was a lot of people, but everybody had their responsibilities set. So it was really easy to manage, I'd say. We ended
Very good.
the project in time and in scope.
Very good. Perfectly. One thing that we are a little bit behind schedule here, so we're not so much in time, but I
Talking
think
about
that we
time.
can catch up. Yeah, talking about time. So maybe there's really a lot of questions being posted. I kindly ask you to do it through the Q&A button. But I would suggest now that we go ahead with chapter C of Dr. Amrein's presentation.
Yep, thank you, Augusto. Yes, let's do it online. All right. So let's continue with the next chapter when it works. We will see. Yep, now it works. So let's continue with chapter C. And this chapter, as you might remember, is about the delivery strategy. So Vishay choose a regional plant-wide server setup of the MES solution on the Vishay network, which is not based on a private cloud technology, but simply 3 on-premise servers. Vishay decided against external hosting because an internal hosting can achieve more easily a high security, low vulnerability, and good performance since data stay in our protected network. Finally, we keep full control of our systems. Of course, self-service has the disadvantage that we must maintain and update our service ourselves with our resources. But external systems don't run for free either. Vishay choose the solution with 3 MES servers hosted in 3 different regions in our own server farms. It is a compromise between 2 extremes, many on-premise servers in each production site or 1 central MES server. The advantages compared to 1 central MES server are on hand. A regional service in a similar time zone. This means that fast support can be achieved in the event of a technical problem. On the other hand, we are better prepared for strict data security requirements in the US or China and Europe, where hosting data outside of the country or accessed by people of other nationalities, for instance, ITER in US, is already restricted today. The advantages over having many servers on site are the reduced time required for change and upgrade management and the high effort required to keep so many different servers synchronized and standardized. Please note that for time-critical events, we keep raw data locally on a server on site when they are created or exchanged at high performance in case of, for instance, equipment integration or machine automation. In general, we try to minimize the time-critical data transfer to and from the MES application server. Our server configuration is very classical and no wows. It follows the recommendation of critical manufacturing. We use the classical failover clustering for both servers, database and application. The database server runs in a cross-functional mode, means the data warehouse server is running as a primary on node 2, where the online database is running as primary and node 1. On one database and one application server serve all our clients in the same region. So the setup is in each region exactly the same. Something similar is to say about the classical 3-level deployment. So to perform proper change management, we had to set up a classical 3-tier structure with a development, a quality assurance, and a production environment. We use a development server to implement all product changes and customizations, which can only be done by IT staff. When development is ready for business to test the functionality, IT deploys the changes to the QA server, and business runs the test. Since MES interfaces with SAP, you heard about that, but also other IT systems, we need to make sure that the interfaces to the quality assurance instances of the other systems are active as well and can be tested together. Only in case of a successful integration testing of all systems, processes, and data included in the test, the IT department receives the approval from us, the business, to migrate the changes and customizations to the production systems. We have implemented the 3-tier structure for all 3 regional servers individually. And that's about our deployment strategy. So I hand back again to Augusto if maybe there's any question.
Well, there's actually a lot of questions in both in the chat box and in the Q&A button. So several of them relate to the hosting and how the hosting was done. I think this was clearly explained by yourself. There is eventually a question that is being asked that I could eventually try to summarize in terms of the developments in cloud infrastructures and the offer that critical manufacturing has of today, with this type of developments, will you maintain the on-premises approach, or are there any plans to review this aspect in the future?
Sure, sure. We always have to keep an open mind and open eye on what is going on in the market, but especially also with in the field of this, and especially done by critical manufacturing, though with the software. So that's important for us to see if there is any moment in time where we then have to reconsider our approach. And as I said, we are always open-minded to do that. In fact, the decision what we have taken was based, of course, on the situation 2 years ago when we started with the setup. And at that time, it looked like that also the critical manufacturing software was more designed for an on-premise solution and not so well suited for a cloud setup. I'm not saying that you cannot put any application into the cloud, also like yours, but it was not really a cloud technology what was used. I'm hearing and seeing, of course, also with other webinars from you, that there is, of course, a change also going on to go towards cloud-based applications. And we've heard from your company about the concept that you are changing also to containers, etc., in version 9 and 10. So yes, of course, we are very open-minded. We are watching what is going on, and then we will always look to it and possibly then reconsider when we believe that a new approach is better for us and better for the service we have to give.
Exactly, that's precisely the point, and mostly because especially after version 9 of our MES, we now allow a containerized installation methodology by using Kubernetes, for example. And it is possible to have a full cloud-based installation, a full on-prem installation as you have today, and actually a hybrid installation with some components installed locally, especially for equipment connectivity, where we need, of course, high performance and high reliability, and the remaining components installed in the cloud-based solution. So this is available today, and something that eventually may be considered in a future revision of your setup.
Absolutely, absolutely. But there's, of course, also then the question is, what does it require in knowledge and know-how on our side? Because we heard about Linux, etc. So that's definitely what we need to know before we can then decide and saying what kind of know-how we have to build up.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the point is that the offer to our customers today allow them to decide on which one is the best practice for them in terms of hosting our solution.
Sure.
Very good. Yeah, so there's a few other questions. I may leave them to the end. So I would now kindly ask you to proceed.
Okay, then let's go over to the chapter D, which is already the last chapter of this presentation. Although I would say, in principle, this is the most important part of that, what I want to tell you, because people drive our program and make it successful or not. So people are the key, and that is what I want to show here, how we organize the many people involved into such a rollout program. So the first level of our service organization, what we are building up, because it's still, of course, in a setup mode, is a corporate team headed by me, what owns our MES application and is responsible for the rollout management. It is our job to service, in that respect, all the 11 divisions and all their production sites. We do that with 3 so-called super key users, what is a role, who mainly, but not only, serve the site in their region. Although it is a corporate program, we do need and especially want the full support and collaboration of all divisions and manufacturing sites at all time. The site's first context for us in the site is extremely important, and therefore we define, or we give the recommendation to define a so-called MES key user. He should be ideally available before a project starts. So he acts then during the project for us as a first contact, but he should also act later as a first contact for any user in a site in the case of a question or problem with the MES system. Surely another very important factor of the success is the full support of our global IT organization. with all its departments, like for instance, Global Manufacturing Automation Systems, abbreviated with GMAS, supporting our MES, Global Business Application Systems, GBAS, supporting our SAP, the infrastructure or the service group, and many other. Global IT serves us in the regions with running the regional service, but also worldwide with support on automation, equipment integration, or with the change management in MES or ERP/SAP. So you see that Vishay's regional approach is very prominent and is in use in all our organizations to serve the sites better with professional people sitting in a similar time zone, speaking often the same language. But the concept about super key users and key users in the field is not only available and set up solely for the MES rollout, but it is a common approach in Vishay since 2011 already, when we introduced the Business Process Management Program for all functions in Vishay. Each business process of the company is assigned to a so-called Business Process Owner, or in short, BPO. In total, there are 12 BPOs covering almost all business processes in Vishay. Central objective of the BPO program is to permanently improve the performance of the business processes through standardization, harmonization, and innovation in line with Vishay's vision, mission, and strategy as defined by the top management. A BPO owns the business processes of his area. In case of MES, there's one BPO, me, owning all manufacturing processes in the BU passes. The BPO and his super key user team set up a network with named key users in the field to support all end users in all sites worldwide. The end user can easily contact his next key user in case of questions. The key user can use the competence and knowledge of the entire business process organization to answer the question. But the MES program, with its many projects, is not a standalone activity. It is also embedded into another kind of roadmap to avoid, for instance, surprises, be prepared better for the future, means also for rollout projects, and create a good return of investment. Before you can start a project in a site, doesn't matter if it's greenfield or brownfield, you need to check the readiness for it. We name it prepared for the future. Part of this preparatory step is an awareness of present and future data and processes, real requirements, and the supply chain in the factory. We look to the work center, the WIP management, or decoupling points. We interview local teams and meet the future players. We recommend hires when and where necessary and tell the supervisors what will happen with the rollout and that involved people need enough time for it. Yeah. Availability of people is, by the way, still often a major problem when running a project later on. When a site is well prepared, or we believe it is well prepared, we can schedule a time slot for the rollout. Once a project is approved by management, Global IT and other BPOs approve this. Then we look to the necessary supply chain changes, check the needed processes versus available standards. New people must get trained, need to learn how the system works and what it offers. And of course, we do automation and equipment integration as much as we can during the first installation already. After implementing MES in a site and using it for quite some time, we want to make now use of the many data we have now available in MES. This is a time when we need to find potential cost savings, which are so far little with the steps of preparing and using. With automation, adding sensors, process controls, and monitoring many parameters, we can analyze the field and define plan, do, check, act cycles for two areas. A, the supply chain optimization in shop floor with identifying bottlenecks, reducing WIP and throughput times, or B, process optimization to improve the product quality and increase yields. The last step, called improving, is a level when we get mature with the continuous improvement cycles, finish the digital transformation and use its full potential. This is a time where we may reach a level of manufacturing excellence. Also here, we do an evolutionary approach. So we want to migrate plans by plans, and any MES installation brings the site to a level and is a kind of Kickstarter for the continuous improvement cycles towards high manufacturing excellence. So we are building up a team that should support the sites on this important step, because this brings the major benefits and the return of investment. We want to embed the MES more and more into our standard application landscape, with looking to workforce management, product lifecycle management, and surely ERP, and our overall supply chain management. This integration will bring further potential for process improvements, higher reliability, and leaner manufacturing. We need people driving and servicing this transformation. People, again, on the ground should love our software, processes, and services. Hence, a quick and effective service is the key for the success. And networking of all key users worldwide and all service teams in business and IT, as well as the establishment of remote services as standard, are important factors. Each site migration project triggers a bundle of follow-up activities and services, such as other projects or change requests for those sites. All in all, migrating more than 50 sites in a reasonable time frame requires a lot of resources and a good deployment plan. That is the end of part D. Thanks a lot for listening, and I hand over back to Augusti for the final Q&A session.
Yes, thanks. I think this was a very, very interesting presentation, touching a lot of topics, and certainly a learning out of this experience. There is never too much emphasizing that. I'm actually looking at many questions here related with inclusion of partners that were already answered. The answer is yes. So the sites that are going to be migrated, how is the hosting of the solution done? You mentioned this in block C, if I'm not mistaken. And there is a question related, or a couple of questions related to the organization itself, as you presented it in this block. So you mentioned, and I'm trying to summarize all this. So you mentioned the importance of the corporate service organization to conduct and to make this multiple site rollout easier and faster, at least. So this people-oriented organization that, according with what you mentioned, owns the MES lifecycle. How did you engage the people, and how do you brought them to this organization? How they are dealing with it? How easy or how difficult was to have these different stakeholders' commitments from the different units and the different groups? Well, and particularly at the site level. So how was this experience to gather this organization together?
Many questions, of course, not so easy to answer that in short, but of course, yes, I will try to do my very best. Of course, you saw that we are in the beginning of the journey. So to name the numbers, we have, for instance, currently 4 key users. I have all my 3 regional super key users. So we together form a team of 7. And of course, there are further people than currently we are looking to those, because with the further rollouts, you heard about the preparation phase. We are looking, of course, forward already to the next project, and therefore new key users will come on board. But as said, is the beginning. Then we got the end. We will have maybe 50, 60, I don't know, key users and so on, many other players, and that will be then a bigger challenge. We are just a little team, and that's, of course, more easily to form. But again, what I'm doing is I'm always saying to the divisions which are next on the list, please stay prepared, like I said. So look out for a smart person who can become the key user, because he should be there directly from the beginning. And so far, it worked quite well. They all were listening well and doing that. So we always had the person assigned, and I can only say those which we have we have on board are excellent. It's really worked quite well. But again, it's a little group. It's of course much easier now. So also hearing that, you hear that also the stakeholder commitment, or the other question you asked, that is given. In fact, it is really so that the list of sites and divisions volunteering to be the next on the list to get migrated is long. So it is more the opposite problem what we have when we are too slow, that they have to look for another alternative solution until they will get migrated with their site. So that's even the challenge. So how we can boost our program to be faster. So less how we can, I think, convince people to support that. So as I said, the interest in the organization is high. The power we currently have is limited. And of course, as I said, we have to boost now to the next level so that we can fulfill the expectations that people have with such a software and with the rollout and the benefits I have described over here.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually answered another question I was about to ask in terms of the team size. So you provided some figures and some numbers of the team size, so I don't need to ask that question. Looking at the list of questions, maybe an interesting one here is related to the sequence of sites that you explained very well. So was there any particular criteria to sequence the sites and organize the sites for these subsequent rollouts?
Absolutely. And I always have from the beginning already a list of all the sites. And of course, the list is then also expanding when we get new acquisitions or expansions. So we have to permanently review. I'm quarterly reviewing that, also with respect to cost estimates. Things have to be budgeted, as you might know, of course. That is not only big planning or for a project is not solely about headcount, but it's also about budgeting, costs, etc. So yes, we are reviewing it quarterly. What is the sequence? Now, as I said, that depends, and it can permanently change. That means also somebody who sees him on the list for 2024, he cannot fully rely on that because, as I said, it can change. Not only, I think, trustful is that what is in the next quarters get started, but we cannot look, I would say, further than a year currently. The sequence is mainly because of urgency. That is one aspect. So where we have systems, legacy systems, which needs to be urgently replaced because it is only supported by one person or two people, and they're getting closer to retirement. Of course, we're also looking to the low-hanging fruit. So like we have now a plan for rolling out once the product line, what we already have migrated in one side, also to another side, because it's clear that is more the copy and paste. We have not to reinvent everything. So that is then a more lower hanging fruit. But there are also other aspects, of course, the cost-wise, not so IT cost for any legacy environment. But sometimes it's also that we have to put things to the end because I said we have not finished the supply chain cleaning. So that means what we only do is the SAP, the classical standard SAP and MES should be always rolled out together as a bundle. Means the SAP should be there and we connect to it. That is not always the case because, as you heard, we grew by acquisition. So we have acquired companies which still have their own local ERP software running. That needs to be replaced first. So those, of course, are more at the end of the list because first we have to migrate this to SAP and then we can come with MES. So there are many factors, and that's why I'm saying the list is full of those factors, and I have to permanently review it also with the management, of course, because there are many reasons why they reconsider and pull something in and push anything out.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks for the comprehensive answer. So there's another one, since we have a couple of minutes more, which is a little bit more on the technical side, and that relates to what some people call the EDHR, so the electronic digital history record, or the traceability of the different materials that flow in the solution, or in the MES in this case. So in case the question is, in case of migration, do we have the records only for what was done in the MES, or was there a migration from the legacy MES or the legacy solutions into the critical manufacturing MES?
Yeah, that's always a question what to do with the history. So here and there we are lucky in Vishay that because it plays a bigger role when you have already a good MES system in place and you are replacing it now by another one, because then you have to question what to do with those data. In most areas where we are, there are not so much. Yes, there are of course certain legacy data. You can hardly bring them into the MES. So clear answer is no history in our MES. When we come, all the history stays, and we have then individually, because we have so many different legacy systems, we individually decide then what to do with them, because we have to keep them for sure. Now, you heard about medical requirements, etc. But then are different possibilities, of course, so that we can possibly shut down the system but keep data in a certain way so that we can track and trace. That is an individual topic of its own, always in such project. When we have this requirement, what should we do with the historical data? But again, we are not bringing them onto MES because that is almost impossible. And that's why it requires always an individual solution on its own.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, now switching gears a little bit, and we are reaching towards the end of our webinar. So Susanna, so because you had this initial experience starting to work with Vishay, and at the same time, Vishay also creating this organization, this corporate organization. So, how was this experience of deploying an MES while at the same time the customer is creating a centralized organization? So, what distinguished this organization that Dr. Amrein presented from the others? So, how important evenly is this organization to exist on the customer side?
Sure. As Dr. Amrein has explained, this team of the super key users has been quite helpful in the later sites. For instance, in this second site that we worked on, they in this third site already that we are working on currently, they already have enough knowledge on critical manufacturing's MES. So they were able to do most of the modeling. They were able to work with us in the collection of the requirements to make sure that they were standardized requirements, or if they were like real requirements needing development from our side. And in that case, we only did the customizations, the ones that were completely new, that weren't able to be reused from previous sites, looking out for the standardization. And they provided initial training for the new users, so they're quite knowledgeable in MES already. And that helps a lot in the ramp up. And now that we are facing simultaneous site implementation as a whole, as a program management, this will be for sure one of the best tools that we have, one of the best solutions that we have to keep on moving fast and effectively.
Very good, Susanna. So I think we are really about to finish. So there's a few questions that are unanswered. We'll take care of them and answer them offline, of course. And I think this is the time to really send a special appreciation, especially to Susanna and Dr. Amrein, for all the time that you spent preparing these and for what you have shared today. It's been a pleasure to be here. And of course, thank you to all the attendees to attending this webinar. I hope this was a well invested time to your side. As I mentioned, we are going to answer by email the questions that were not answered. We will send a Vishay case study together with the recording of the link to the recording of the webinar. And certainly, if there are any further questions, feel free to reach us either to our own email addresses or to the marketing@criticalmanufacturing.com email address. And one of my colleagues will be happy, of course, to follow up and respond to your requests. So again, thank you very much to all of you for participating and hosting and presenting in this session. And I wish you a good day and a good summer in this case.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.